Hello there, welcome to another video here on the Esoteric Circle YouTube channel. My name is Pete Haskins, and we're going to be talking a little bit about something a little different than we normally do on this channel. We're going to be talking about some literature, and specifically Herman Melville's Moby Dick, the book that is regarded as the greatest American novel. Melville is probably one of the greatest writers that this country has ever produced, along with maybe, probably William Burroughs, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, just an amazing writer and someone who is so spiritual and someone who I want to really share some stuff about, and I want to share this with you about our spiritual journey, specifically with Gnosticism. Stay tuned. Dun dun dun. All right. Well, when we talk about Melville, who was born in 1819, died in 1891, so think of the gamut of and the broad spectrum of American history that he lived through, and he wrote these popular books in his early 20s and had a lot of success as a writer, really documenting some of these adventures that he had in his late teens and early 20s. Regarding being on a ship, being in the Navy, being on a whaling ship. And he wrote these books. One was called Typee, Typee. Another one was called Omu, and Redburn, and Marty, and White Jacket, and some of these early novels. And at first they were very popular. And then in his life, he was really striving to be this legitimate author. And the more he wrote about what he wanted to say, the less popular his books became. And he really struggled. And by the time the 1850s arrived, he was working on this book about a sea adventure. And it started out just that, but it became this enormously metaphorical book about almost anything you could think of about America and about spirituality and about God. And about slavery in America, and about homosexuality. There's just so many things within this book which are you can learn from, and I would highly recommend you diving deeper, as they say. And I just want to share a couple of the things. One of the guys that really helped him become popular was D.H. Lawrence. There's his picture right there. D.H. Lawrence, and one of my favorite writers, although he was British, lived in the United States for a while, and he was highly suppressed his writings, D.H. Lawrence, and he wrote an essay, and I have this in the Selected Literary Criticism. He wrote an essay about Melville at about the time that he was gaining popularity, because when Melville died, he was obscure. He had worked the last 25 years of his life in New York, and he was just this obscure person that really everyone had forgotten about. And he wrote, the very last thing that he wrote was found in like a jar up in an attic or something like that. It was called Billy Budd, and he wrote this and then just tucked it away. And this novella is considered one of the greatest pieces of writing in American literature, Billy Budd. And he died in obscurity. I mean, barely even mentioned in the New York Times in terms of his obituary. And so he was forgotten. 1891, 1920s come along. People like Parker and D.H. Lawrence start to notice him, and they start to reread this. And because it did not sell well at all. If you have a first edition of Moby Dick, which ironically Jim Morrison from The Doors had a first edition of Moby Dick, and I saw that was on sale the other day. Amazing that these even exist, because there was a warehouse fire and it burned down, and all of the first editions that were stored there for Moby Dick were burned. So they're very rare, the Moby Dick first editions. So by the time Lawrence discovers him, everybody's like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? And one of the most important things is that Melville lived his art. I mean, he last 25 years must have been really tough for his wife, because he was a grumpy man. He lived in obscurity, a lot of trouble with his family. Had a son who committed suicide, and just had a real struggle, and died in this obscurity. But he dove deep. And Moby Dick, even he's like in his mid-30s when he writes Moby Dick, and it just drained him. But he sought after this, and he did not fit in. And we talk about the Gnostics, the Valentinian Gnostics, how they see, especially just the Gnostics in general, see the world as the universe as a prison, and Earth as this oubliette, as this dungeon. And one of the things that fascinates me about Melville, and I think this is a connection that you and I might have with this, is that he saw that too. He saw this world as a dungeon, and he was trying to escape as he went to the Pacific. And he found all this freedom in the Pacific, and even his freedom in his sexuality. He found that, and then had to come back to the United States, get married, try to earn a living, and he just was not comfortable in his skin. I mean, his connection with Nathaniel Hawthorne, very odd, and who knows about his sexuality, but who cares? Really, that was his business. But one of the things that D.H. Lawrence wrote, and this essay in here really helped put Melville on the map, because a lot of people liked D.H. Lawrence. And so I want to read this little section here. This isn't a great essay by him. It's kind of all over the map. But I want to read this to you because it's very almost histrionic in his excitement about Melville. So this is one authentically amazing and a genius writer talking about another genius writer. And he says this: "The world isn't what it seems." D.H. Lawrence is talking about Moby Dick. And I'm going to read from Moby Dick here in a minute too. So, the Pacific Ocean holds the dream of immemorial centuries, Lawrence writes. It is the great blue twilight of the vastness of all evenings. Perhaps the most wonderful of all dawns. Who knows? It must once have been a vast basin of soft, lotus-warm civilization, the Pacific. Never was such a huge man-day swung down into slow disintegration as here, and now the waters are blue and ghostly with the end of immemorial peoples, and phantom-like the islands rise out of it, illusions of glamorous Stone Age. To this phantom Melville returned, back, away from life. Never man instinctively hated human life, our human life, as we have it, more than Melville did. And never was a man so passionately filled with the sense of vastness and mystery of life which is non-human. He was mad to look over our horizons, anywhere out of our world, to get away out of our life, to cross a horizon into another life, no matter what life, so long as it is another life. Away from humanity, to the sea, the naked, salt, elemental sea, to go to sea, to escape humanity. When it comes to a metaphor, there is nothing greater than the metaphor of Moby Dick in that entire book. You can look at this book, and probably one of the greatest books about it is basically that essay there. But a guy named Charles Olson wrote Call Me Ishmael. And Charles Olson was from this area of the country, Massachusetts. Died at a very young age as a poet, but wrote this book, and this book is probably my favorite book in my library. It's called Call Me Ishmael, and it compares Shakespeare and Melville in Moby Dick, and really talks about, from the 1950s standpoint, this look into this metaphor, and how it you can look at it in terms of Captain Ahab being this capitalistic pursuer of this white whale. And you look at the metaphor within this, and you can see capitalism being criticized, which I love, because I'm not a huge fan being an environmentalist. You can't be an environmentalist and be a capitalist at the same time. I'm sorry. But you look at that in terms of what is happening with our world with climate change. You look at it in terms of our race relations, and the Pequod being this symbol of America, and how all these races are trying to figure out what to do and how to get along. And in all the while, you have this captain that is crazy, and who is convincing everyone to go along with him in pursuit of his own needs. And we see this in our world today, where we have a leader or leaders who have a pursuit of power, have a pursuit of money or fame or whatever it is, and they're taking us all down with them. And we see this, and we see different people just saying, come follow me, help me do my deed. And you see this, and one of the things I love about this is that it not only is about capitalism and about this criticism of our day and age with our politics, but it's also this symbolic metaphor of our spirituality and how we can pursue God. And when we do pursue God, we find this whiteness and this pureness, and it sometimes drives us crazy. And we ask ourselves, who are we pursuing? What are we pursuing? Are we pursuing our own egos? Is this about me looking good or looking spiritual or looking smart? What is my intention? And all around this, you just look through this book, and it is symbolic, metaphorical of so much stuff. And on top of all that, it is so beautifully written. Beautifully written. And I want to read just one little section here. And this is a section, this is chapter 68. And it is about after they have killed a whale, a sperm whale, which is what they hunt. And just listen to some of the way he writes. Is absolutely beautiful. I love to write, and I cannot write like this, and I wish I could. Listen to this. This is entitled The Funeral. Haul in the chains, let the carcass go astern. The vast tackles have now done their duty. The peeled white body of the beheaded whale flashes like a marble sepulchre. Though changed in hue, it has not perceptibly lost anything in bulk. It is still colossal. Slowly it floats more and more away, the water round it torn and splashed by the insatiate sharks, and the air above vexed with rapacious flights of screaming fowls, whose beaks are like so many insulting poniards in the whale. The vast white headless phantom floats farther and farther from the ship, and every rod that it so floats, what seems square roods of sharks and cubic roods of fowls, augment the murderous din. For hours and hours, from the almost stationary ship, that hideous sight is seen. Beneath the unclouded and mild azure sky, upon the fair face of the pleasant sea, wafted by the joyous breezes, that great mass of death floats on and on, till lost in infinite perspectives. There's a most doleful and most mocking funeral. The sea vultures are in pious mourning. The air sharks are punctiliously in black and speckled. In life, but few of them would have helped the whale, I ween, if peradventure he had needed it. But upon the banquet of his funeral they most piously do pounce. O horrible vulturism of earth, from which not the mightiest whale is free. Nor is this the end. Desecrated as the body is, a vengeful ghost survives and hovers over it to scare. Espied by some timid man-of-war or blundering discovery vessel from afar, when the distance obscuring the swarming fowls, nevertheless, still shows the white mass floating in the sun, and the white spray heaving high against it. Straightway, the whale's unharming corpse with trembling fingers is set down in the log, shoals, rocks, and breakers hereabouts beware. And for years afterwards, perhaps ships shun the place, leaping over it as silly sheep leap over a vacuum, because their leader originally leaped there when a stick was held. There's your law of precedence. There's your utility of traditions. There's the story of your obstinate survival of old beliefs, never bottomed on the earth and now not even hovering in the air. Thus, while in life the great whale's body may have been a real terror to his foes, in his death his ghost becomes a powerful panic to the world. Are you a believer in ghosts, my friends? There are other ghosts than the Cock Lane one, and far deeper men than Dr. Johnson who believe in them.